أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. This is study number 3 of the Ramadan Daily Quran studies of the year 2020. And I am Zahid Aziz of the MD Anjuman Islam Lahore, UK. In this study, we're going to look at developing good qualities through fasting. And the first quality we will look at, we will talk about, is patience. This is a quality which is developed and strengthened through fasting. In fasting, we have to wait till a certain time to satisfy our most essential physical needs and desires. Now, patience means that you stay and persevere in a difficult condition voluntarily, even though you could use some unlawful or immoral way of getting out of that situation. But you stay in it voluntarily and you restrict yourself to lawful and moral means only. So that is the meaning of patience. And some say, people, that the Holy Quran refers to fasting in the following passage. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُم مُّلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ وَأَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ, which translates as, and seek assistance through patience and prayer. And this is hard except for the humble ones who know that they will meet their Lord and to him they will return. Chapter 2, verses 45 and 46. So, although fasting is not mentioned in this verse, but what it says is seek God's assistance, God's help through patience and prayer. And it is said that by patience here is meant fasting, since it's mentioned along with prayer. Another quality that develops through fasting is thankfulness. It is only when we are deprived of something that we realize and value the blessings which we usually take for granted. Now, thankfulness for the things which we've got or for what someone has given us is a quality which it's not only commended and stressed by Islam and by other religions, but in fact all human beings recognize the importance of this quality of thankfulness. Then there is charity and generosity. Now this thankfulness which we've just mentioned, it should not be merely confined to feelings or words that we are thankful, we feel thankful, we express gratitude for what we have. It must be manifested practically. The deprivation of fasting should make us sympathize with the suffering of others, and it should create in us the desire of alleviating the suffering of others. And it is recorded right at the beginning of Bukhari, the great book of Hadith. This is what it says, or this is what people who were with the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they said. The Messenger of Allah was the most generous of all people, and he was the most generous in Ramadan when Jibreel, the angel Jibreel, used to meet him. And Jibreel met him in every night of Ramadan and read with him the Quran. So the Messenger of Allah was more generous in the doing of good than the wind which is sent on everyone. That the wind does not withhold its generosity. It spreads over all people. And people found that the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was more generous in the doing of good than even the wind. And it's because being charitable is one of the objects of fasting that people, Muslims who for some reason are unable to fast, and we will discuss this in later studies, those who are unable to fast during Ramadan, and also they cannot make up for these missed fasts after the month of Ramadan, that the Holy Quran requires them to feed needy people instead of their fasting. And it says in the Holy Quran that those who find it extremely hard may effect redemption by feeding a poor one. Chapter 2, verse 184. Another object of fasting stressed in the Quran is to learn to refrain from usurping others' rights and belongings, to take illegally or unethically or immorally things, whether it's rights or belongings of others. And this is because in fasting, we voluntarily give up what is rightfully ours. Our food and drink, they are lawfully earned. It is our right to consume them, but we voluntarily give them up. So how can then we think of taking what is not ours at all, but belongs to someone else? And this is stated in the last verse in the section on fasting, where the Holy Quran says, and I'll read it in translation, and do not swallow up your property among yourselves by false means, nor seek to gain access thereby to the judges, so that you may swallow up a part of the property of other people wrongfully, while you know that you're doing wrong. So this swallowing up your property among yourselves, it may mean that property has been placed in your charge, meant for the use of others. For example, the government has funds, the community has funds, that may be in your charge. And the words among yourselves, do not swallow up your property among yourselves by false means. The words among yourselves indicate that people are colluding with each other, helping each other to usurp community or national property which is not rightfully theirs. So this prohibits this sort of people who hold community property or government funds, which they should be using, officials, which they should be using for people's benefit, for colluding among themselves to take it by false means. And this also prohibits people from bribing the authorities in order to get something which belongs to others. You see, it says here, nor seek to gain access thereby to the judges. Seek to gain access with their property to the judges, so that you may swallow up a part of other people's property. So that, in other words, you bribe someone in authority to give you something which actually legally belongs and morally to someone else. Here we note with deep regret that in Muslim countries, this particular command of the Quran is violated blatantly and widely. So much so that in the outside world, in the non-Muslim world, people have come to believe that bribery and corruption are actually a part of Muslim culture, and that Islam has nothing to say about these malpractices. The above verse makes the teachings of Islam on this point very clear. And also remember that honesty, integrity, probity are also human values. And whoever goes by them, whoever sticks to them, will benefit whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims. And lastly, what we are doing in fasting is that for a period of time we are giving up the use of things which are ours and which we are entitled to use. And this teaches us that sometimes in this life, for some higher purpose, it is better to give up something that we are entitled to. Something that we are entitled to, it might be better to give it up instead of insisting on having it. And this can help to establish peace between people and nations. That occasionally you give up something which actually is rightfully yours because it serves a higher purpose. It establishes peace between people and nations. And very lastly, often in this life you find that if you want to get in the world what you are entitled to from the government, from some commercial company we're in dispute with, if you want to get just what we're entitled to, we feel that we have to claim more than what we are entitled to, so that they will reduce it and give us what you're actually entitled to. So we inflate and exaggerate our claims. And of course, to inflate and exaggerate the claim, you have to use falsehood. And what fasting teaches us is only to demand what is rightfully ours, only to demand that, even if it risks that we might actually get a little less. So with that, we end the third study for this Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.